Most of us reckon we know a lot about safety. If you think about it, safety is a constant feature of our everyday lives. Whether we're driving a car, walking along the street, riding in an elevator, 5 miles up in a plane, on the top of a mountain, or even at home in bed. We do our best all the time to protect ourselves and our possessions from harm. We all like to feel we have a safe home environment, and we worry about safety many times every day. Did you switch the gas off? Did I put out that cigarette? Should I replace these old wires? Did I remember to lock the door? Once we get outside the home, we are less in control of our environment and the dangers increase, because we have to rely not only on our own sense of safety, but also on everybody else keeping to basic principles of safety, whether they are imposed by law or just plain common sense. We have many close calls every day, rushing across the road when the lights are red, bumping into people, slipping downstairs, and even spilling cups of coffee or having them spilled on us. But when we get to our workplace, power sources are bigger and machines are heavier. And although we all think we are fully aware of the dangers, accidents still occur. In these 3 videos, we hope to demonstrate just how and why unsafe conditions can arise and how we can all work together to improve our awareness and readiness. After all, safety saves time, saves energy, saves money, and saves lives. Let's begin with some very basic safety problems. If the floor is uneven, someone is sure to trip up. If there's a big pile of boxes, it's bound to fall sooner or later. If there's an obstruction, someone is bound to walk into it. And a burning cigarette is likely to burn somebody. We can divide minor shocks and incidents like these into 2 basic categories. Situations where things are kept in an unsafe way or are badly located, and situations in which people behave in an unsafe way. Now, which of these 2 categories would you guess is by far the major cause of safety problems? In fact, 80% of unsafe situations are the result of the second category. Yes, people are the main problem. Having said that, it's not so easy to determine just how and why people are behaving in unsafe ways. There are, of course, many factors involved, some of them physical, some of them mental, and those are what we will now look at in more detail. To understand how and why things can go wrong during the work process, we need to take a look at the mental and physical faculties that we employ all the time, most of them subconsciously. When there is something not quite right with one of these faculties, or with the way they are being employed, then an unsafe action or accident can easily be the result. There are 4 major human factors which all have a bearing on the level of safety. Perception, thinking, coordination, and emotional state. Let's see how each of these elements plays a role in the overall work process and how each can be the cause of unsafe behavior. In order to grasp a situation, we have to use all 5 senses: vision, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Whenever we begin a particular work process, our senses come into play at once. We check the situation by looking, listening and feeling, and in some cases by smelling and tasting, so that we can decide exactly what needs to be done. This is known as the input function. The information is input into the decision-making function of our brain, and we consider what points to be careful about. This safety checking involves many factors, including our past experience and all the knowledge gained from it, and also a feeling that this is safe. This is what we call grasping the situation or perception. But if the initial input is inadequate, or the safety checking process is lacking, then there is a strong possibility of an unsafe situation occurring. Let's look at a few examples. Of course, a basic problem may be that we are long-sighted or short-sighted, or have some other trouble with our eyesight. But even if our eyesight is perfect, it is still easy to trip over some obstacle when the lighting in the workplace is poor. Some of us have actual problems with our hearing, but a dangerous situation can easily arise when our hearing is restricted by the use of earplugs or when we are doing very noisy work, such as grinding or polishing. Then there are problems with how we interpret the information that our senses give us. For example, jumping across a 1 meter space is normally not particularly difficult. But what happens if the other end is 20 centimeters higher and you don't notice? Inattention is a common cause of accidents. The reason might be lack of experience or knowledge, or just that we're in a hurry. When everything is properly checked the first time, there may seem to be no problems. But then you relax, go away, and don't bother to check again when you return. And then there are the times when we know we should be careful, but we simply forget. And this happens more and more the older we get, or the more preoccupied we become with other things. While we are proceeding with some work process, it's essential that we keep thinking about safety points. What is potentially dangerous and why? How we can avoid that danger? How we can avoid trouble to our colleagues, and so on. This thought process should lead to a constant search for ways to solve problems, create a safe working environment, and also maintain that level of safety. But if our thought process is disturbed because we are tired or busy, then the likelihood of our acting in an unsafe manner increases dramatically. Let's have a look at a couple of examples of the kind of situations that can occur. In recent years, many work processes have become very difficult to understand, as facilities and equipment have become more and more complex. Lack of understanding can mean that we have no idea how to react, even when a dangerous situation arises. Another problem is when you only consider things from your own point of view. You think it's safe, so it must be safe. This is clearly a dangerous way to work. There must be general safety standards, not just individual ones. The reasons for misjudgments can range from lack of perception or lack of experience to the particular personality strengths and weaknesses of each individual. When we're driving a car and see the lights change to red, we slow down and stop. To do this effectively, we have to have good coordination between eyes, brain and body, and of course good physical coordination of feet and hands. Everyone differs when it comes to particular skills. The vital thing is to know what we are good at and what we really can't do effectively. If we don't know that for sure, then we can easily create accidents. You may be good at knocking in nails with a hammer, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're any good at knocking in stakes with a sledgehammer. In other words, know your limitations. It goes without saying that practice makes perfect, and that means constant repetition until the job can be done well. If you don't have enough practice, or you're worrying about something else, or in a rush, then your mental agility and physical agility don't match, and the result is, well, a mess. Emotional ups and downs can influence all the major elements in the work process. Grasping the situation, thinking about the situation, motor skills and general work behaviour. One simple example would be having a quarrel with a colleague, losing the argument, and then continuing to think about how to fight back while you are supposed to be working. Or you may be under a lot of pressure from the boss to get a particular piece of work finished on schedule, and you continue working when the power should be switched off. And there are many possible reasons for a deterioration of your motor skills. Heavy drinking the previous night, generally feeling unwell, hearing negative comments from colleagues, and so on. If we are feeling bad for some reason, our rhythm gets rougher, we lose our enthusiasm for the work, our actions get slow and dull, and we lose the ability to notice things. All of these emotional factors can easily lead to erratic behaviour and become the cause of accidents. If we now consider the 4 basic mental and physical factors which affect the way we work, and the major reasons for unsafe behaviour, we find an interesting phenomenon. The average rate of occurrence of accidents is this. Because of misperceptions, 25.4%. Because of errors of judgment, 48.5%. Because of operating errors, 20.4%. And because of erratic behaviour due to emotional disturbance, 5.6%. The surprising figure here is that nearly 50% of all accidents or dangerous situations are the result of errors of judgment. We've been looking at the main causes of accidents, but what can be done to prevent them? Can we somehow make everyone less prone to dangerous situations? Well, there are two basic steps involved. First, to analyse past examples of unsafe behaviour carefully in order to determine the root causes. That's what we've already been doing. Second, we have to develop some kind of policy which will effectively remove those root causes and so prevent accidents. Let's just remind ourselves of the basic factors involved in misperceptions. Our eyesight or hearing is defective, we don't notice irregularities, or we forget or ignore safety points. Now, how can we avoid these factors? The easiest way, of course, is to establish fixed working procedures and make sure everyone sticks to them. These will include a pre-operation inspection and a clear step-by-step outline of the work. They can only be established after proper checking based on a complete awareness of problem points. We all need some brief breaks or pauses while we're working, moments for thought and reflection. We can make these more effective by saying something which reminds us of exactly what we are supposed to be doing, or we can pause and actually indicate whatever it is we must take notice of. But unfortunately, very few of us ever proceed with work exactly as planned. This is often because we are over-familiar with the work process, or because we have a tendency to forget or ignore certain points over which we should be taking particular care. In other words, we have to look for ways to overcome our human weaknesses. In Japan, the point and call method is one common way of creating a moment for reflection. You point and you speak. Now, at first, this may seem odd or even silly, but in fact, we all do a similar thing in everyday life. For example, we look around the room before we leave home, checking that all the gas and electricity points are switched off. Some of us speak, some of us are silent, but the principle is the same. We pause to think and check. The use of the voice and the pointing action draws attention to what we are doing. However, it's important that this kind of action actually makes us think about what we are doing, rather than just becoming a reflex action. As we have already seen, errors of judgment lie behind almost 50% of all accidents. And the major reasons for such errors are lack of experience and knowledge, complacency, and personality. These three factors all influence our ability to grasp situations and to fully coordinate our mental agility and physical agility. It's only natural that inexperienced workers are not fully aware of all the danger points at first. But it's also true that many older, experienced workers gradually pay less and less attention to their work and make many errors of judgment. In other words, they become complacent. To deal effectively with these three factors, it's vital that colleagues talk to each other, swap experiences, explain problem points, advise each other, and generally cooperate with one another. If this doesn't happen, if nobody discusses the work and everyone insists on using only their own judgment, then accidents of all degrees of seriousness are almost certain to occur. Talking and listening are the most effective ways to learn all kinds of information and also to get hints about points which may never even have crossed our minds before. If someone refuses to communicate or thinks it is unnecessary or too much trouble to share information, the result can often be to delay work and sometimes even to cause accidents. This sharing of knowledge and experience should be going on all the time, not only between members of the same section, but also between people working on the same production line, or even between people from different but related sections. The inexperienced worker can often be helped a great deal simply by being told by more experienced colleagues that the method you're using can be dangerous, even though the method seemed quite safe at first glance. Just a few minutes of friendly discussion can avoid a multitude of mistakes. So let's now take a look at a few discussion techniques.
Safety lab, okay!
Morning safety meetings. One basic method is to establish regular, short morning meetings which concentrate on safety. Although such meetings are normally one way, with one speaker addressing everybody else, they can help to avoid complacency about matters of safety. Toolbox meetings, or TBM. These are even more effective than brief morning meetings. Before embarking on any new job, there should be a proper safety meeting at which all likely problems are clearly discussed by everyone involved. On-the-job safety sessions. These are designed to point out safety problems and potential dangers workers are likely to confront in a particular task, so that everyone's safety education can be improved. These three types of meeting can only be effective in removing errors of judgment and so avoiding accidents if they become a regular and continuing part of daily work. Everybody should be encouraged to make suggestions, point out problem areas and discuss all possible improvements together. The ideal way is to use all three types of meeting because they tend to reinforce each other and help to build a stable safety program. Now let's think about causes of mistakes in our work routines and how to avoid them. One good example is telephoning. It's very easy to ring the wrong number, especially when you're dialing some number that you think you have clearly memorized. However, because you're in a rush, you get it wrong, waste a lot of time, and inconvenience other people as well. This is a good example of reflex actions resulting in inaccuracies. It is much better to check before acting. In other words, more haste, less speed. Another common problem is when we don't notice some unplanned variation in the rhythm of our work. For example, a panic situation can be created if the speed of the line suddenly changes and nobody notices. If workers attempt to carry on regardless, the situation can become really dangerous. The point is that once work habits are ingrained, it can be very difficult to adjust to irregularities. What should happen is that the problem is noted, the cause ascertained, and the appropriate adjustments made at once. Many workers get into a fixed mind situation, which means that they cannot switch easily to different modes or patterns of activity. The pointing method of checking is one very simple but effective way of avoiding this kind of problem. To avoid mistakes, we have to remain aware of everything we are doing all the time, consider safety procedures for all aspects of our work, and maintain standards properly. There is one final cause of mistakes in our work routine, and one that can easily be overlooked. That is health problems. All kinds of health troubles can affect our work. Lack of sleep, backache, over-drinking, or just the normal aging process. So here are a few points to bear in mind. Take full responsibility for control of your health. Do some warming up exercises before starting work. Don't sit or stand in the same position all day long. Get up and move about periodically. Also try to walk at least 10,000 paces every day. Try and maintain a good posture at all times. Know your own strength. Don't try the impossible or strain yourself. Try and keep your strength up and your body in good shape by regular active exercise. And if you can, visit a sports club or gym regularly. We should also remember that lack of enthusiasm and concentration can be caused by stress or depression or some kind of emotional upset. Maybe there are problems at home or some trouble with a colleague. But whatever the reason, stress is a surefire way of inviting accidents. By far the best technique to avoid such problems is to have frank and positive discussions with colleagues or bosses. It's amazing how much better you can feel simply from getting a problem off your chest. It's also important to keep an eye out for warning signs displayed by your colleagues. Do they look pale or tired? Or are they unusually quiet? Or behaving in an erratic fashion? Such things may indicate a problem that can pose a danger to you as well as to them. So it's important not to hesitate, but check immediately if anything is wrong. Then you must listen to them sympathetically and certainly avoid preaching to them or seeming over-inquisitive. It's a difficult balance to get right, but it can contribute a lot to the maintenance of safety. In this volume, we've been taking a general look at the kinds of situations which can lead to unsafe actions and possible accidents, and have tried to suggest a few ways to avoid them. Every workplace has its own problems, its own dangers, and its own solutions. We hope these hints will help you in your own work to understand problem areas better, and also find ways to create a safer working environment through careful consideration and discussion.